Today I'm going to talk about digital content transformation in the area of workforce enhancement, workforce recruitment and workforce retention.
So welcome to ProfileTree TV, and today we're joined by Brendan Kavanagh from the Olive Group. So welcome up to Belfast. Thank you very much for travelling up to see us today.
Absolute pleasure. And thank you very much for the invitation.
No, you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your company? It'd be
sure. Well, I'm Brendan Kavanagh. I'm the CEO of the Olive Group, as you say, and a couple of other companies as well. Mm-hmm. I'm 53 years of age, and I consider myself born in a pre-digital age, but I suppose I'm deep in digital nowadays.
Yeah, making up for it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I grew up in Dunleary, County Dublin, beautiful place, and I did my first management buyout when I was 24 years of age. Wow. So I went to work in the oil and gas industry, actually, on the downstream side. And my dad actually worked for the company for 30 years. So much to his horror, I orchestrated a management buyout of the company. And wasn't sure whether he was pleased or not. I think he ended up being pleased. Yeah. But it was a time of great innovation as well. And I think that gave me sort of the grounding. I wasn't really, the type that, was for university or that was kind of obvious from the start. I did okay in school, but in some ways, I suppose, I believe that universities, in my, I suppose, naivety, I believe that universities were for slow learners.
Wow, very good. Yeah. You'd rather be in the real world.
That was it. Couldn't wait to get out the gates, and I went to work with. My first job actually was in a home care department store, and that was great because you're dealing with regular people, and it was great for developing, interpersonal skills, and where I was in the heart of Dublin on Georgia Street and O'Leary, so that was certainly the university of life. But no, I developed the skills, and I ended up, as I say, working in a company that basically kept service stations going, and the first sort of innovation that I was, I suppose, lucky to experience was as they transformed from kind of batteries and tires to superstores, like super, grocery stores and all the rest. So all the technology, even though it was microprocessor based then, I was part of that, and also lucky enough to sort of, a bit like the commitments, I had nothing, I was willing to risk it all. So I got involved. We did a management buyout. It was a company that had been inherited by, classic Irish story, by the son of the father who was the founder, and he kind of didn't mind it. So I saw the opportunity at 24 and went after the cheek of me.
And here we are today.
Here we are today, indeed. Yeah,
incredible. So obviously from oil and gas and into the Olive Group.
Yeah, I stayed in oil and gas for 24 years, and there was a lot happening, and it's not dissimilar to what's happening now in tech, in the sense that, and particularly in the digital content space, huge. You can't really say changes, transformations happening really quickly, and that happened on the downstream oil and gas area as well. Like there was big movers like the Seven Sisters, all the big oil companies. Suddenly they started to retreat to exploration again. They didn't understand retail, so then you had large independent retailers taking over, and so they were pushing all the time, the cutting edge for technology. And so, long story short, I grew 4 companies in that space.
Incredible.
And thankfully I sold in 2005. Bought it back in 2006 and sold it again in 2007, just before the crash and Lehman's and all that sort of stuff. So I kind of looked at that after I'd sold some of the companies in that space. I'd worked for these big international corporates that I'd sold to, and so I had a bit of experience. I think everybody should do their own thing, you know what I mean? Even if it's a sweet shop.
Yes.
The experience that you get doing that is exhilarating, you know? And I could see the absence of that in some of the corporates that I worked for, you know? But anyway, when I sold the business, I looked at, you know, there was the onslaught of one of the greatest recessions since the Great Depression. And so I kind of thought about, you know, what I knew, I suppose, and what I knew was, you know, large blue collar workforces, you know, and I'd had you know, thousands of people at some stages, you know, working with me, and particularly with the corporates. So I said, well, in a recession, and I suppose it's the chancellor or the entrepreneur, one or the other in me, what's a good business to be in?
Yeah.
So in a recession, the best business to be in is have to have rather than nice to have.
Yes.
And you know, there was you know, a couple of dynamics going on in Ireland and the UK at the time, in the sense that there were large workforces being laid off. But in Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland, there was another dynamic going on, and that was the FDIs were expanding, the foreign direct investors.
Yes.
And so the likes of Intel and Facebook and Google, and you know, it's interesting, Ciaran, because not a lot of people realize that outside of the US, Ireland is probably the largest exporter of software in the world, you know. And you know,
I didn't know that.
It's incredible.
Yes.
And,
such a small place.
Absolutely. And so I could see that there was an opportunity for what I call agile learning, where people needed to, you know, nobody was going to join a company and get the gold watch 50 years later, you know. You know, we have the onslaught of, you know, the fourth industrial revolution, technological redundancy. So I kind of reckoned that to get into that agile learning where people could get skills to move around or be, you know, widen their options. And so I started with health and safety and blue collar workforces, because blue collar workforces are the largest workforce in the world.
Yes.
They're the most regulated and they're the most transient, you know.
Wow.
So I said I would do that. So Olive Safety was born, and you know, to work in some of these FDIs, the foreign direct investors, they're pretty big. There's a high bar on compliance, and so that's why I started with Olive Safety, and we started to train people in compliance and regulation for the construction industry, and then the hospitality industry as it started to recover. And now we would be involved in construction, hospitality, retail, manufacturing, health and sport, pharmaceuticals. So the great thing, as you well know, Ciaran, about digital content is it doesn't care where it goes.
No.
It can go into any of those. So but initially we started with classroom training. And that's fine, but it has its limitations.
Yes.
You know, there was it kind of I suppose it clogs the pipe in terms of trying to induct people into opportunity. And so within a couple of years, we were dealing with great companies like BAM and Mercury Engineering and, you know, the Restaurant Association of Ireland, Hotel Federations, all of those. And one of the limitations was, you know, how long it took to get people trained, and the cost of the downtime. It's very often a hidden cost, because again, you know, a fact that people don't realize is that 3 hours in a classroom is about half an hour online. So for some of our clients, we were saving, you know, to 80% in the cost of downtime, and that was millions for them. You know, so that's why we're so keen to get into online training. So yeah, so we started to take the existing regulatory compliance stuff and create a blended learning approach, because there's still, I'm still, and I say this against my own sales guys, they hate me saying it, but online training is not the whole solution. You know, blended learning is the solution, you know, and so where people can arrive for face-to-face mindful of the subject matter, you can save probably 80% in downtime, and then have that sort of very practical, mindful session in terms of whether it's assessment or workshops or the like. So, but we have a solution for that now as well, with the advent of immersive technology, which I'm sure we'll be talking about later on.
For sure, we'll come back to that. Incredible. So basically, so you provide training then for hospitality, or you did?
Yeah, we do.
So, because I'm thinking in Ireland, north, south, and even the UK, like the tourism industry is incredibly important.
Massive,
and Brexit and all these things, we need staff, trained staff, who deliver an amazing service. We've got all our Asian friends and American friends and
Polish and
everywhere coming in as tourists and as visitors and to work. But how we train these people up quick enough to match our growth ambitions? I think in Ireland there's 9 or 11% growth target this year for tourism. So where do we get the people to service these? So
and there's two problems there. One is obviously a gap in skills, and for example, one of our partners is the Restaurant Association of Ireland, and like they've over 4,000 members, and there's a huge shortage of chefs, and then also in terms of you know, getting trained waiters and barmen and the likes, and onboarding them quickly, because it's a very transient space, and very often it's a gig space where, you know, students or you know, housewives or house husbands or whatever, they want a gig, they don't necessarily want a full-time job. So digital content is the way, you know, hosted in the right environment is the way to do that. And you know, there's good science behind this as well, in the sense that you know, the brain interprets video 60,000 times faster than text, you know.
Cool.
And this is the findings from Harvard and Forrester's and all the rest of those reports are available on the internet. And it's also, we live in an age where that's how we get our messaging. Like, if you look at the TV now, you know, people have gone beyond waiting for curry and waiting for EastEnders and all that stuff. No, that's right, you know, so it's all sort of you know, driven by your own choice, you know. And then you look at Netflix, YouTube, all that sort of thing. And like, I would be very hard on the learning and development sector, because you know, they're not just behind in terms of what's actually happening in the space, you know. You know, they're like leagues behind, because they're still backslapping each other, you know, in the learning and development industry for PowerPoint online, do you know what I mean? Or not much better than that, you know. And the rest of the world is on Netflix and you know, Udemy and you know, Lynda and all those things. It's sort of moved so much faster, and even some of the larger ones there, like LinkedIn and Lynda, they don't really know who they are, in my opinion. But Like, people want their message, they want it fast, you know. And again, coming from foresters, in terms of stimulation, you know, you've got, you know, 8 seconds to stimulate, you know what I mean, to actually get somebody's attention, you know. A goldfish has 9 seconds.
Yeah.
So we're actually less than a goldfish in terms of our attention span. So
it's going to be worse too.
So yeah. So in terms of digital content, that's how we. And of course, it's 60,000 times faster. If I look around this room, I've got it all just like that. If I was to read an Ina Blyton about it, you know, we're sitting on a grey chair and a grey carpet, you know, all that sort of stuff. So we're definitely in a very exciting space, you know, and the growth of Olive, you know, in terms of, you know, being able to supply that space, I suppose, is the real sort of pearl in our crown. You know, I think that we knew it was kind of early in play that we needed to produce content quickly. It needed to be cutting edge, and it needed to be the lowest cost with the highest quality. So we're creating content now. We've got 600 digital developers, and we're creating it in
slightly more than us. 600. Wow.
600 digital developers.
I'm noting that, yeah.
And we create sort of, you know, video, really high-end video, and we create 2D, 3D, gaming, augmented reality, virtual reality, and you know, so that's, you know, that's what the market is seeing in their day-to-day lives. So from a learning point of view, the very least you need to do is know how the public and the learners take in information. So it was kind of a strange story. In 2008, I went to climb Everest.
Amazing.
And I went to Nepal and going to find myself, and that was a waste of time. And
it's the look in that, like us all.
Yeah, and I became very close to the Sherpa guy that I went up Everest with.
Yeah.
His name was Mingma Sherpa, and I discovered that he was being paid like $1 a day to you know, to do all of the hard work and make me look good. And then, you know, I think I might have been paying $300 a day. So I could kind of see that also, like, the work ethic that these guys had, and like, was amazing. So anyway, long story short, I didn't get to the top. I got up to about to Kalapatar, which is about almost 6,000 meters. And by the time we came down, we were brothers from another mother, and stayed in touch and all that sort of thing. So, however, what I did notice was that there was a huge opportunity there, but only if you had a wholly owned subsidiary, as distinct from just subcontracting it or whatever. So I went to the colleges and met some of the professors in digital media and digital content creation and stuff like that, and ended up hiring the professor and 5 of his best guys.
Amazing.
And you know, we started out on our journey, and what it meant was that I could, like yourselves here, have, you know, the DNA and the culture of, say, the country like Ireland here, using the project managers that I have here, and then also have the possibility to grow a resource there in terms of templates initially and stuff. But over the years, and the exchange programs and all the rest of it, you know, we would always have Nepalese here and Irish or UK guys over there. Incredible. And so now we're 600 people, as I say, and we're also in Brisbane in Australia. We're in San Francisco, Pittsburgh, Washington, Dublin, London, Berlin, Barcelona, Dubai and Doha.
It's not too bad.
So we're getting, for a little Irish company, we're getting around, but sure, we've done that for 100 years.
Yeah, well, it's where have we not been?
Yeah, absolutely.
An office missing there in Belfast.
Yeah. But I have.
We'll talk about that later.
Have you now?
Very good. No,
Yeah,
and when you talk about teaching and education, I share the same opinion. You know, we look back through our history books. I'm sure you remember, and you'd have seen back in the day the teacher outside at the stone or whatever was teaching the kids at the classroom, and we still have the same model today.
Absolutely,
which is
just the stone is built around us to keep them in.
Keep the rain off us.
Absolutely.
Well, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So you see a massive opportunity then in education.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the whole sort of the bridge between employment and employers and educators is broken, and I think it probably always has been. But technology has that answer, you know. I tell a story there about one of the guys who works with me, and in 2009, he came to me and he said to me, "I'd like to work with you for a year, free of charge, just to pick up some business skills and relax." And first of all, I admired his bravery, and he said, "But like, why would you like to work with me for a year free of charge?" And so he told me that he had just graduated, first class honours, right?
Brilliant.
And the year like 2009, I think it was, and the subject was auctioneering.
Wow.
So you can imagine in 2009 graduating in real estate or auctioneering, like what the bloody hell were the universities doing? Like in 2006 and 2007, you know, the deans and the principals of that university, surely to God, they should have been talking to the students about maybe now's not a great time to graduate in real estate.
Yeah.
And so he was left with no real option. He had a degree that was useless, and he needed to
retrain.
Yeah, absolutely. So my view is that, and I know, as I said naively, I said that I thought universities were for slow learners. I don't believe that that's true. I think that education, is food. It is power. It is enabling, and the more people grow in knowledge and wisdom kicks in, hopefully at a later age as well. But I don't think it is deployed in the right place now. And like my view on that would be that if we take this guy, Marcus is his name, he could have, if he wanted to be an auctioneer, he could have started in an auctioneering practice. He could have done an ECDL course while he was working there, and develop skills around sort of computer skills and then other software platforms, etc. He could have taken a real estate or auctioneering course at night or even online, and he could have gone on a career path that gave him options all the way along, that agile option that I was talking about there, so that when the hit the fan, he could easily have moved into other industries. Do you know what I mean? And would have had value, and also would have had real life experience, business experience. Do you know what I mean? Interfacing with customers, customer service, all of those kind of things. So really, he was set up for a fall. Now, all at his choice and stuff like that. But my view on life now is that that bridge that's broken, it will be replaced. And what's happening, the UK government, in fairness to them, have had great vision introducing the what they call the apprenticeship levy. And of course, when we think apprenticeships, we think of crafts mainly, like electrician and
Traditional,
mechanic and all the rest of it. But like we were party to the launch of an MBA that's being delivered inside large companies like PwC, Goldman Sachs, all the rest of it. So it isn't just about craft apprenticeships, it's also about career paths for people at all levels, yeah. And I think that the business that you are in and that I'm in, you know, we can facilitate that, you know. And like we're going back to, my father was a mechanic, but he died at 84, but he was always very proud that he was an indentured mechanic, and indentured really was a form of white slavery then. But you know, he was committed to it by he was apprenticed to, and it was City and Guilds. But like, if you look at, you're actually learning within you know, a working environment.
Totally.
So there isn't that gap between the learning material. The tutors who probably haven't worked ever in a commercial environment, you know what I mean? So I think that, you know, we can, with our technologies, really enhance that. And don't get me wrong, there's some fantastic people in academia, and most of those who, you know, have vision would agree with me that, you know, the problem is the gap.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And a lot of them wouldn't, oh, it's technology, I wouldn't, this, that, or the other. And it's simply not true, you know? So I think that the term open university is going to take a new term, and you know, a new sort of pathway, in the sense that, like I said, the X factor, or the professor idol or whatever will actually be real entrepreneurs themselves, who compete in terms of the quality of the knowledge they impart, as distinct from the name of the university. I see that in the future, and it'll take time. But we in the digital space should be able to help them by creating the content that is needed to, you know, eat up that information quickly. And also we should have it on our phones, or on our laptops, or on a tablet, all that sort of stuff, yeah. So we're deploying those apprenticeships now, working with the prime funding agencies throughout the UK, and we just started to deploy the same in the construction industry in Massachusetts. Wow. And so that, alongside all of the regulatory and compliance, you know, when things come along like GDPR, which, you know, there's probably been billions spent on in the UK and Ireland, in classrooms and all the rest, and people still scratching their head, wondering, is this Y2K, is it real, or is it whatever? But it is real, and you can deploy, you know, staff awareness programs really quickly, utilizing digital platform media. And, like, you know, 80% of all the problems with data breaches happen with staff. Yeah. And it's usually human error, they're not trained or whatever. Yeah. So that's an example of that. And then, you know, we'll be hearing a lot more, I'm sure, about cyber resilience and cyber security and hacking. And as you know from your website business, that's a reality.
A big risk for everyone. When you see, you think, okay, how am I going to protect myself in this world? But then when you see all these big companies getting hacked, you're just going, wow. Very challenging.
Yeah, absolutely.
In regards to education then, so again, and we're talking one thing as well, people not going to university, the debt. I think the fees that are being charged every year now, and the opportunity cost of not earning a salary. Yeah. So not only you know, your £7,000-9,000 a year fees, your accommodation another £4,000 or £5,000, then maybe you're not earning £10,000 or £12,000 or £15,000. So per year by 4, it's a massive financial burden as well. So
absolutely, and like, that's a real problem. And, you know, as bad as it is in, you know, the UK and Ireland, you know, it's on steroids in the US, you know. And like, if you look at that, you know, who wouldn't want to get the opportunity. Once you've decided what you want to do, who wouldn't want to do it in a working environment and actually, get your degree and get paid a few bob as well. And there's just no argument against the concept of employers getting closer to the curriculum, because for a long time, and like for me as an employer over the years, I would have been quite disappointed by some of the knowledge that graduates had around basic sort of business skills, and great kids and all the rest of it. And also I know they have a great time during their years as a student and all the rest of it. But I think they'll probably have a better time with a few bob in their back pocket. And not having, exactly, and not having a huge debt over their heads going forward. I think, I think that's almost immoral, and I think that every state has an obligation, to provide an education to its, its people. And I think, education is not just, a nice to have or whatever. It's a human right. And I think using technology, everybody can actually learn. They can go on a career path. I think employers want to get involved, and it's the employers that should be incentivized by the government to get closer to, what they can bring to the table in terms of curriculum, and there's no denying that there's just a huge gap there that doesn't need to be there. And using immersive technologies now, you can have a reduction in the off-site learning as well. Where we can create an environment where people inside work can do their learning in an afternoon once a week, and then apply that to their job, during the week.
So how does the Olive Group today then deliver apprenticeships, and then in the future, where are you moving towards? What do you think it's going to evolve to?
So there's two sides really to that. One is that the way that most governments across the globe operate is that they're creating funding for education. And then appropriately there are agencies created that are approved by the government to be able to consult with companies on how to download that funding. Specifically in the UK, the apprenticeship levy is taken, I think it's 0.05% of the turnover of companies. And that's held in a pot. And then there are approved organizations for downloading that. But the employers themselves can become employer training companies. So once they can actually apply to what's called a rota, and and host that internally, which is, I think, the best. The best of all, from the point of view that, as an employer, and from my point of view, imagine creating your own succession plan. You know what I mean? In terms of creating your own next generation employees and all that sort of thing. And then also the gift of giving somebody that agile learning path, that whether they stay with you or whether they move on, there's real value brought to the table both sides, And like of course you do get employers who say, oh, but what if we train them and they leave? But there is that old adage of, what if you don't train them and they stay? You know what I mean?
Worse, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what we've been doing is identifying and working with those approved agencies. And one of the problems with classroom training, as we discussed earlier, is that the percentage of of time off-site is a difficulty for employers, you know, and some of them are, you know, for all the wrong reasons, not downloading their levy fund or not, because it's on a user-lose basis. So, so by providing the platforms for the deployment of training, and by creating the training in a digital way, then employees can learn anytime, any place, anywhere, 24/7. They can also have master classes once a month, be referred to workbooks and the like. So the whole thing becomes much more organized. And so what we're doing is providing the technology. We're like an extension of the these approved organizations, or primes as they're called, to be able to deploy the training. So, but of course the apprenticeships that we're creating are not just like carpenter, electrician and stuff like that. We're doing that with Solus in Ireland. We're helping them with assessment online and stuff like that. And we're working with other organizations, awarding organizations in the UK, like AOFAQ, all to help the deployment of knowledge in a much more organized fashion. But some of the courses that we're creating are like, you know, intrusion analyst, cybersecurity, which is like 36 months, you know, and cyber technologist. In the sports side, we're creating, you know, community activators courses, assistant coaches, assistant teachers, working with a fantastic company called Premier Education. And what they do is they run all of the sports activities in schools. I think they have about 5 million kids every day on their platforms. And they would also do arts and designs and other things like that as well. So we're actually creating apprenticeships within that company. And then we're also, we've got personal training and an instructor trainer in 3D on an app. So if somebody wants to become a personal trainer, they can take the content online and book themselves into you know, workshops for the practical assessment side. And what 18-year-old doesn't want biceps and pecs and all the rest of it, yeah, like us.
That's it.
But yeah, so there's such a wide variance there, but as we said earlier, like you, Ciaran, it's digital content. We're not claiming to be the subject matter expert. We're working with the subject matter experts and being able to deploy that. And so, and then matching people into jobs after we train them. I mentioned earlier that recruitment was something that has evolved in this journey. We created an app for the deployment of training, and that I think one of the, I think the cathartic change for us was when Tesco approached us, and they had a problem with having transparency over their subcontractor chains around issues like health and safety and environment, because they obviously, you know, fantastic company and like very conscious of health and safety and their obligations in that area and stuff. But how can they be sure that everybody in their contractor chain is compliant and to the law, basically? So what we did was we created a native app that specifically on their property section, all of their construction and maintenance, and you can imagine right across the chain, there's a lot of interactions on a daily basis.
Wow, yeah.
So we created their own T's and C's, their course for them, and we deployed it across all of their contractor chain. And so anybody who, before they go onto a Tesco site, has to take their course and achieve the required pass mark in terms of assessment. So Tesco at the top, as a super user, can see every single contractor underneath, but every single contractor can see their company. So essentially, Tesco ended up providing a free learning management system for these clients because they could also host other content on that as well. You know? So that was the big change. But what happened was every individual on the ground ended up with a, I suppose you could call it like a digital resume or digital CV. And one day, I kind of, you know, I was thinking about this concept of a digital CV and what mattered. And, you know, the recruitment industry, for me, always kind of made me wonder, because if you look at, say, any industry that just has a broker element to it, where they're providing value, they say, you'll be providing 20 CVs hoping that one works and the likes. But in my opinion, you know, those kind of business are going to be disruptive, and you've seen yourself what happened in, say, air transport. You know, Ryanair annihilated travel agencies. I mean, travel agencies now are really just about bespoke trips. You know, we want to go down the Nile or whatever, you know. But other than that, people just go online and that's it. You know. But having sort of created a digital platform that showed all of your certification, you were able to receive newscasts from the organizations, podcasts, and all that. You're able to take any of the appropriate regulatory courses or bespoke T's and C's on the platform. I kind of said, like, imagine if we could send people jobs based on their actual credentials. Yeah. And we live in an age now where, you know, it's second nature in terms of all of these matching algorithms. Yeah. So that's where the concept of providing recruitment plugged into education was born, and we created a product called HighUp. And the acronym is really for hired and upskilled at the same time. Yeah. And so we went to London and raised a couple of million, and we developed the entire technology as a separate company, just not to confuse what we were doing. And we put the same learning management software on it as well. So the concept of HighUp, you know, essentially is for the public, that it's free for companies to post jobs. It's free for candidates to download and start matching jobs that they want. And if they need, you know, courses to improve their chances of the match, they can take them on the platform, and so they drive up through the ranking. The other thing is, I remember as a kid being disgusted about, you know, you apply for a job and you never know where you are in the process, and there's no communication, you know. So we put in the on the client platform side that as you move from sort of applicant to screening to interview to job offer, you get push notifications, the same as you do with Uber, or I'm sure Tinder is the same. I'm not sure. I've never used it. But
I guess all in some of that.
But so using that technology, we wanted to provide that as a plug-in for free for our clients and for people who wanted to improve the chance of getting a job. Like, if I spend a $5 on myself to take a food hygiene course, I'm probably going to have a better chance to get that job in the hotel or the restaurant, because it's a good indication that I take myself seriously. Do you know what I mean? Or a customer service course or something like that. So, so we, in the last year, we ran the pilots, and we did what all the recruitment companies did. We tapped into big data, and we're posted over 1 million jobs, and did over 800,000 matches and the likes. And having done the pilot, we evaluated and we've adjusted, and now what we're doing is merging the two companies together. So we kind of we know who we are now with that. My critics would say, you know, Brendan, you're in sport, you're in health and safety, you're creating VR, you're doing this, you're doing that. But contrary to what I believe, I did have a vision. Got it wrong in some areas, in the sense that, you know, with full employment, the matching algorithms have to be right, but it should be driven from the client side rather than the public side, because really the jobs are what matters. And so we built out that platform a little bit more as an extension of our internal LMS and all. So we're launching a new product in January. It's very exciting.
Incredible.
And it looks a little bit like Facebook for learning and for jobs. But it only looks like that. It's actually like having your own, in a company, having your own platform where you can upskill all of the staff from a regulatory point of view. You can also provide apprenticeship courses within the organization, so that people can go on a learning path and become, you know, the best that they can possibly be. And then any trending courses, whether it's around social media or whatever, you can also post videos around what's trending in the sector, messages from the MD, messages from the ground up, and then some business accelerators there as well, in terms of links to other third-party services like social media and media agencies and the likes. So it's kind of everything that we have done is in one place now. And so somebody was asking me recently, it was my son actually, I'm always talking about the elevator pitch, and I'm sure you find it as well, Ciaran, that you know, in digital media it can look like you're doing this and you're doing that in all the different industries. But as I keep saying, digital content doesn't care where it goes. The principle is the same. We leave the subject matter to the experts. But so my elevator pitch now, I have it if you want to hear it.
Please, I'd love
is that when we're merging HighUp and Olive together, we're HighUp Enterprises, and the product as we're launching it now, we already have a 25 million pipeline, and we're rolling out over 100,000 companies in the first quarter of next year. So it's a launch, but the pilots have been going on for a while. So we are in workforce enhancement, workforce retention, and recruitment. And what we want to do is, you know, empower organizations to be able to do that in a very efficient manner. Yeah. And I think recruitment companies will be in trouble, you know, and you know, we want to help them as well, because I think what you do and what I do, and they should get close to us, and they need to be offering a better value proposition to their clients. That, you know, it's not just about matching candidates, and certainly where there's full employment, it's certainly not. You know, it's a race to the bottom on that price of the broker fee, you know. So I think that they should be offering clients onboarding, you know, learning and induction programs, orientation programs, apprenticeships, third level, you know, MBAs, all that sort of stuff. I think that those recruitment companies who are clever will need our services. And if they don't, then, you know, if we're going to the market saying that the matching algorithms are free, you know, then we're giving the client, you know, the possibility to create their own talent pool, you know. So for the recruitment companies who are, you know, they've survived a very long time, $500 billion revenue globally, you know, and you know, I can understand for certain positions that it is a very, you know, bespoke industry, but I think they need to be bringing more value, and I think we can help them to do that, you know, and I think the clients would like that as well, you know, because I think staff, in the next 10 years, staff retention will be as important as staff recruitment.
Incredible, you're right. So today is all recruitment.
Yeah.
And tomorrow's keeping.
It's about retaining them, you know, and like there are some very cheeky recruitment companies out there that get their fee and then 2 days later, they have another opportunity for you. Very frustrating as an employer.
Especially in some industries, it's very tough. Like tech
that's right,
at the moment in Ireland. My word, it's incredibly hard to get.
Absolutely, and that's where, you know, things like, for example, that intrusion analyst, cyber technologist, all of those courses would be very interesting to the tech guys, and a good reason to stay. If the company is investing in you, why wouldn't you stay? And you know, this is a great way to do that, you know. And then in sport, of course, as well, there's lots of opportunities there. We've created a coaching tool in VR, where the coach can actually create the set play just using the cursor, and create the runs, for example, in rugby or American football, whatever. And once it's actually sent out, the player gets it on the phone, sticks it into the headset, and they can see the entire move from their position. So we've been building out that as well.
Talk about training.
High tech. It's great,
It's amazing, and enhancing the sports people and the education and training side of it as well. Incredible. So anyone can get this app?
Oh yeah.
So come January, basically.
Come January, we want to say to a company that it's a SAS model. We're going to help you reduce the cost of your training by at least 80%, and also you can pay for your training on a subscription model. So say from a restaurant that has maybe 10 people, you know, it'll be like 50 quid a month for all the training that you need, including your own personalized deduction. To a large organization with, you know, 200 people, you know, it'll be, you know, 4 or 5 grand a month for all your training, plus the opportunity to post jobs, match with talent, and then on top of that, start to create learning paths for your management and your senior management and stuff like that. So
I can't wait to
so
see
it's very
this.
exciting. It's really exciting. Yeah, absolutely. And then we want to work with companies like yourselves. We've appointed already. We're starting to appoint HighUp franchises in the States, in each state, so that they can provide the platforms. And the platforms that we've created are white label in the sense that they should have the brand of the company on them, and and the engine behind that. We can't be everything to everybody, but we can provide the deployment platforms, and so we're already working with successful agencies like your own, Ciaran, and you know, again, providing products that enhance and bring value, and you know, and the likes.
So we're talking about one aspect of education that's been foremost in most people's mind over the last year or two has been GDPR.
Sure.
So you've specialised in GDPR training as well.
Yeah.
You'd mind taking us through a little bit of that?
Sure. We created a website and a brand called gdprcourse.com, and one of the reasons that we created that as a brand was to sort of tap into and get a focus on what was happening in the world around data protection. And you know, up to the 10th of May, you know, 2018, there was a huge amount of fear, a huge amount of mixed information. Some people were taking it seriously. Some people think that's just like Y2K, it'll come and go. And the reality is what's happening on a global basis around GDPR, it's not just a European law or regulation. It's in fact, you know, it has tentacles all over the world, you know, and essentially there are 12 steps to GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation. And the first step is probably the most important step, because it's where 80% of breaches in data protection happen, which is your staff. Obviously, they're the processors of information. So with the sort of penalties that are being applied are quite draconian. It's like 4% of turnover or 20 million euros, whichever is the highest. That's pretty scary stuff. And like, to get insurance around that is another whole labyrinth. And so cyber risk and data protection risk and all the rest of it, it's a big deal, and I think people are just still coming to terms with it. Like, one of the things I've noticed is that the Data Protection Commission in the Republic of Ireland have started looking at everybody's websites to see, do they have policies, and security and privacy policies and stuff like that. We're in the business of GDPR, and I recently got, for one of the websites that we had that's not really used anymore, didn't know that we hadn't actually turned. Yeah, exactly.
Forgotten about, yeah.
But that's great to see. They are active and they are serious about it. And like, rightly so, in the sense that there has been a lot of abuse of, in terms of, this is the first sort of legislation that actually addresses a citizen's right to privacy, and again, people are worried about it. Is this also going to kill business? We all need to be going out. We're hunter-gatherers, and we all need to be able to sort of find clients and develop. And it's not saying that. It's just saying that, business to business is actually fine. Info to info is fine. It's just saying that, to have respect for people's privacy. And that's what's enshrined in it. And, the Data Protection Commissioner, the CFO in the UK, they really are about, consent. Consent is a big aspect of this. Like, the first step, as I say, is about staff awareness. The rest are basically, easy to follow from the point of view of, having the appropriate regard for privacy, and then also having the appropriate regard internally with regard to protecting the data that is held, that you do have permission for, So,
amazing.
yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, again, very interesting. I'm thinking the 12 steps. Do I actually know the 12 steps? I'm going to have to refresh myself after this.
It's on our website.
So we did this, you said, did the GDPR, and it's probably no harm in refreshing ourselves. So, note for everyone. But no, very, very good. Well, thank you very much for coming in today and taking us through what Olive Group is doing, the exciting new app that's coming out in January, and the future of education actually for businesses. Very exciting. So the opportunities out there, and it's a great honour to meet someone that's as passionate about content marketing, content creation, and sees the value in it. Actually,
the future is about content,
without a doubt,
and that's what it's all about. It's what triggers people, and it's what stimulates them, and it's how people receive information now, from a digital point of view. That's where everybody turns, when you think of the universities of the past, what were they doing? We've all got universities in our pockets now. We've access to anything we want, and our job is to enhance that.
If anyone wants to reach out, read more about the group, find out about the app, or the GDPR, what's the websites we should send them to?
So if you go to olivelearning.com, or Brendan at HighUpApp.com, HiUPApp.com.
Excellent. And the GDPR course is
GDPR course.
That's very good. Yeah. Good on the good work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Easy to remember, so brilliant. So thank you again. And thank you very much for watching today's lesson or education. We're learning every day here. And hopefully you'll tune in tomorrow to see the next video. So this is Ciaran from ProfileTree, the content marketing agency here in Belfast in the Innovation Factory on the Springfield Road.